Today we are going to start with the next topic, that is physical conditions of Earth's interior. Physical conditions of Earth's interior. Now, what do we mean by physical conditions? That means physical conditions simply mean what is the temperature prevailing inside the Earth, what are the density inside the Earth, pressure, state. State means solid, molten. What is the prevailing rigidity, compressibility? Rigidity. So, when we discuss the physical conditions prevailing inside the Earth's interior, we generally mean to refer to these things. What is the temperature? What is the pressure? What is density? What is what is the scenario of compressibility? How rigid the interior is? All these things. Now, in the absence of direct observation, we cannot peep inside the Earth. So, we have to rely upon certain secondary sources to know about the Earth's interior. Ancient time, the most important uh, source of information of Earth's interior was volcanic volcanoes. During volcanoes, magma used to upwell, and the scholars used to study this magma. And on the basis of the nature of constituents making up the magma, uh, on the basis of study of this magma, they used to infer about the Earth's interior. But subsequently, we found that this magma does not reveal anything which is found beyond the depth of 200 kilometer. This magma reveals just up to 200 kilometer depth. Beyond that, it does not reveal anything. Now, with the advancement of technology, we came to know about seismic waves. Seismic waves. These are vibrations that are generated during earthquake. Whenever any earthquake occurs, earthquake is what? It is the result of breaking of rocks in the Earth's interior. When the rocks break, they get displaced, and the same displacement traverses all across the Earth. These vibrations moving inside the Earth are known as seismic waves. Now we developed instruments like seismographs. Seismographs. With the help of seismographs, these seismic waves are studied. And since these waves, suppose earthquake occurs at this place, these seismic waves emanate in all directions. They reach at every place on Earth. These seismic waves reach at every place on Earth, at every place. Wherever the seismograph is there, it records these waves. And seismic waves reveal everything about the Earth's interior. Now, it is the most authentic source of information about Earth's interior. These seismographs record these waves, and on the basis of velocity and travel path of these seismic waves, we have been able to know much about the Earth's interior. There are two types of seismic waves. Actually, there are three types of seismic waves, but P waves and S waves are the two seismic waves that emanate from the focus and travel inside the Earth. Since these two waves travel inside the Earth, so these are known as body waves. They traverse inside the Earth, and it is these two seismic waves that reveal about the Earth's interior. Surface wave, the third wave that causes maximum destruction, is confined to the surface. It does not reveal about the Earth's interior. So, with the help of P waves and S waves, we have been able to know about Earth's interior. These waves, when we study the velocity, it is the velocity and travel path. Velocity and travel path inside the Earth. Their velocity and travel path inside the Earth is recorded by seismograph, and these two aspects reveal much information about the Earth's interior. Now, seismic waves have a property that both P waves and S waves, suppose uh, this is this region is having density D1 and this region is having density D2, and this is the line that separate two different density medium. That this is one density medium and this is another, and this is the line that is separating these two density medium. Now, seismic waves have a property that when they pass through different density medium, then they undergo abrupt change in their direction and velocity. Now, suppose density D1 is more than D2. If they are moving from less dense to more dense medium, their velocity increases and their path also changes. But if they are moving from more dense to less dense medium, their velocity will decrease. And this surface that separates radically different density medium, this surface is referred to as level of discontinuity. Level of discontinuity. So when we study the seismic waves, seismograph, we find there are several different levels of discontinuity. That means there's a regular change in the density inside the Earth. That this has been revealed by abrupt change in velocity and travel path of these seismic waves. Now, the velocity of P wave is given by this formula. And velocity of S wave is given by, see, I am discussing these formulas, I am explaining you for the sake of your understanding. You need not use these formulas in the answer. I will tell you, there is no need to use these formulas. I am just explaining them for the sake of your understanding. Now, how does the seismic wave reveal about the Earth's interior? See, this is incompressibility, bulk modulus, K. What is incompressibility? It simply means the amount of stress required to reduce the volume of any object by pressing it. Incompressibility means the amount of stress required to reduce the volume of any object by pressing it. So the value of incompressibility is maximum for solid, then for molten, and then for gaseous state. Incompressibility is simply the amount of stress required to reduce the volume of any object, by pressing it. Obviously, solids require more stress to reduce the volume. Molten state, you can reduce the volume easily. In case of gas, you can reduce the volume even more easily. So the value of incompressibility goes on decreasing. This is rigidity. Rigidity is what? Rigidity simply means the amount of stress required to change the shape of any object. If I want to bend it, if I want to bend this marker, what is the amount of stress required? It is maximum for solid, because to bend the shape of any solid, the stress required is more. But rigidity is zero for liquid and gas. Why? Because you cannot change the shape of any molten or gaseous state. They will acquire the shape of the container in which they are kept. Gas, molten state or gaseous state does not have any shape. They acquire the shape of the container where they are kept. So this value is 0 for molten state, rigidity is 0 for it is 0 for molten state and gaseous state. Right? And this is density. This is density. Remember one thing, as we move inside the earth, three things will consistently increase: temperature, pressure, and density. They will go on increasing as we move inside the earth. Now, velocity of P wave for solids, the value of incompressibility is maximum and rigidity is also maximum. So the velocity of P wave is maximum in solids. In molten state, obviously in molten state the incompressibility decreases and this becomes 0. So velocity of P wave decreases. In gaseous state, again incompressibility is less and this is 0. So what happens when the P waves moves from solid, molten to gaseous state, their velocity goes on decreasing. In case of S wave, their velocity depend only on rigidity and density. So in solids, they can move, but for molten state and gaseous state, rigidity is 0. So S waves cannot pass through molten state or gaseous state. Is anybody asking any query? Right? Now, so this formula, with this help of this formula, we can know the velocity of P waves and S waves at various depth. We know the S waves does not pass through molten or gaseous state because rigidity is 0. Now, suppose as we move inside that, temperature goes on increasing. So what will be the impact on velocity? It is the velocity of seismic waves that has revealed whether the temperature is increasing or decreasing, pressure is increasing or decreasing. As we move inside that, temperature increases, and when temperature will increase, the incompressibility will decrease, rigidity will decrease. As the temperature increases, what happens? Where we heat the iron to bend it. When iron is in molten state, its incompressibility, it becomes compressible. It becomes less rigid. So with increase in temperature, as the temperature increases, the velocity of P waves and S waves will go on decreasing because value of rigidity and incompressibility will decrease. And as the pressure will increase, obviously, when pressure will increase, what will happen? If you pressure increases, the value of incompressibility and rigidity will increase. If we increase the pressure, it becomes more rigid, it becomes more incompressible. So with increase in pressure, velocity of P wave and S waves increase. Now when we move inside that, both temperature and pressure goes on increasing. It is the relative, but velocity in general increases. This means inside the earth, pressure is more dominant than temperature. It is the prevailing velocity of seismic waves at any certain depth that reveals about the prevailing temperature and pressure at that place. It also reveals about the nature of incompressibility and rigidity. It also reveals about density. Now, one more thing, very important. When density increases, I told you when we move inside, the density increases. Now, from this formula, it appears as the density will increase, the velocity will decrease. But no, as the density will increase, because it is in denominator, it appears as if velocity will decrease. But no, here when the numerator and denominator are not correlated, then it is true. With increase in density, a velocity would have decreased. But here, as the density will increase, the incompressibility and rigidity will increase even faster. As the density will increase, the rigidity, when you compress gas to a liquid, then if you want to compress liquid to solid state, then it becomes even more incompressible. So as the density increases, the value of incompressibility and rigidity increases even faster. So with increase in density, velocity of P and S waves increase. So velocity also gives us information about prevailing density, prevailing incompressibility, rigidity, temperature and pressure inside the earth. So with the help of this, we have come to know about the physical conditions. And one more thing, the velocity of seismic waves also give us information about the mineral composition. What all minerals are making up the rocks. So with this, it is seismic waves that is the sole source of information about Earth interior. Their velocity, what we see inside the Earth, there is regular change. Seismic waves always follow a curved path. They follow a curved path. Curved. Curved path means like this. Seismic waves always follow concave path like this inside the Earth. P waves or S waves. This indicates that there is regular change in density inside the Earth. Therefore, they keep on getting deviated from a straight path. This curved path indicates there is a regular change of density inside the Earth. Therefore, seismic waves follow a curved path. Now, let us begin with this topic. Uh, these formulas are not to be used in exam. I will tell you how to make synopsis and how to write the answer, because people end up discussing all these formulas. There's no need. There's no need. Whatever, every bit of information that we have regarding Earth's interior, that has been provided by seismic waves. But you have to use them, but don't write all these mathematical formulas. Now you have got it ki how velocity of P waves and velocity of S waves, they indicate about the prevailing density, pressure, temperature, rigidity, incompressibility, mineral composition, everything has been revealed by seismic waves. Now, Earth is having three layers: crust, mantle, core. I am drawing a sectional view of Earth, cross section. Average thickness of crust is 35 kilometers. Average thickness is 35 kilometers. But this crust is into two parts: continental crust and oceanic crust. As we discussed yesterday, these first oceanic crust got formed, then continental crust got formed, and these both are different in their composition, density, thickness. So they are discussed separately. Suppose this is oceanic crust and this is continental crust. This is continental crust. It is also known as sial because it is dominantly made up of silica and aluminum. This is oceanic crust, popularly known as SEMA. It is made of silica and magnesium. Previously, when Kober was there, they used to refer SEMA to mantle, but now SEMA means oceanic crust. Now you see both the mode of form. This continental crust is a result of it got formed as a result of at the cost of oceanic crust. Their rocks making up them are different. Now continental crust basically it is the rocks that make up the continental crust. These are granite and andesite. I discussed in previous lecture that andesite or granite are the result of magmatic differentiation of basaltic crust. There's no need to use seismic waves. You can directly pick up the rock and know their nature. They are on the surface. Dominant mineral that form the continental crust is feldspar, rich in silica. Third, density. Density of continental crust is 2.6 grams per centimeter cube. And if you see thickness, average thickness is 40 kilometers. Average thickness is 40 kilometers. 40. But wherever mountains are there, this thickness of crust increases to 100 kilometers. This has been revealed by seismic waves because below mountains, it has been found that roots of mountains are very deep. We'll discuss this thing has been revealed by that below mountains the depth of the thickness of continental crust is 100 kilometer because mm, this has been revealed by seismic waves because when the seismic waves pass through mantle to crust there is abrupt change in velocity, and when we study below mountains we see this this discontinuity between oceanic crust and this is mantle, this is oceanic crust, and this when the seismic waves enter from mantle to oceanic crust they undergo abrupt decrease in velocity. Now this abrupt decrease in velocity in oceans this happened at very close, it is very close, but as we move towards mountains this abrupt change in velocity is found at 100-kilometer depth, which reveals that mountains have deep roots. We'll discuss it. So, for the sake of clarity, it has been drawn like this. Otherwise, actually, Moho discontinuity runs like this, like this. Below mountains, it's very deep. We are showing it like this: oceanic crust. Ideally, this is mantle, and this is oceanic crust, and this is level of discontinuity that is separating it. This is known as Mohorovic discontinuity. And if you see This is the level of discontinuity that separates continental crust from oceanic crust. This was discovered by Conrad. It is known as Conrad discontinuity. Conrad discontinuity. This is Mohorovic discontinuity. Wherever there is abrupt change in velocity, that level across which there is abrupt change in velocity, that level is known as level of discontinuity. Now, for the sake of clarity, we are drawing it straight. Otherwise, this Mohorovic discontinuity runs very deep below mountains. But just to make it simple, we have drawn like this. Now, oceanic crust, the dominant rocks that make up oceanic crust is basalt. We studied yesterday that basaltic oceanic crust is a result of magmatic differentiation of perovskite rock. Mineral ferromagnesia. And third, density. Ferro means iron, magnesia means magnesium. So, important mineral is iron and magnesium. Density of oceanic crust is 3 grams per centimeter cube. Thickness is just, it's very thin. Thickness 5 to 10 kilometers. The thickness of oceanic crust is very less, but still it's very heavy. It is heavier than continental crust. So this information about the rocks, minerals and density you can obtain from the surface itself. These two discontinuities, this is Conrad discontinuity and Mohorovic discontinuity, these have been revealed by seismic waves because they undergo abrupt change in their velocity. Now below crust, that is average thickness is 35. That average thickness of crust is 35. From 35 to 2,900 kilometer. This is mantle. Now, mantle is far more dense. Its temperature is also much higher than crust. Mantle is divided into two parts. And this dividing line runs at a depth of 670 kilometers. Above, between 35 to 670 kilometer, it is known as upper mantle. Between 670 kilometer to 2,900 kilometer, it is known as lower mantle. Right? Now, so from 35 kilometer to 2,900. This is mantle. This is mantle. And mantle in turn is separated by a discontinuity at a depth of 670 kilometer. What we find is abrupt change in velocity. Abrupt change in velocity means level of discontinuity is there. This was discovered by Rapides. So it is known as Rapides discontinuity. Although this thickness is more, if you measure this 670 to 2,900, this is huge, very thick, and this is narrow. But in upper mantle, we have to discuss various layers. So I have deliberately made it wider. Now, this is upper mantle. In journal, if we discuss about mantle, it is denser, it is warmer than crust. Upper mantle that extends between 35 to 670 kilometer. Here, the most important rocks that make up upper mantle. We discussed in the upper part it is perrotite, in the lower part of upper mantle it is gabbro. How do we know it? We know it because of seismic waves. Seismic waves have revealed that in upper mantle, mineral composition is different. In the lower part of upper mantle, it is made up of gabbro rocks. Lower part of upper mantle is made up of gabbro rock. Upper part of upper mantle is made up of perrotite rock. Minerals, plagioclase and pyroxene happen to be the two most important minerals. If you see the temperature in upper mantle, here in upper mantle, temperature, average temperature is 1100 degrees centigrade, and average density is 4.5 grams per centimeter cube, right? These have been revealed by seismic waves. Now, upper mantle has several layers. It has several layers. Now, let us see what all layers make up the upper mantle. At the top, there is 80 to 100 kilometer thick layer. It is known as uppermost upper mantle. The top part, top 80 to 100 kilometer thick layer of upper mantle is known as uppermost upper mantle. It is cool and rigid like the crust. Basically, together with the crust, you see, together with the crust, this is oceanic crust, this is upper mantle, this uppermost upper mantle and crust together, it is known as lithosphere. And it is this lithosphere that is broken into plates, and these plates are moving. The uppermost mantle is cool and rigid like the crust, and it moves along with the crust as a unit. And this uppermost mantle and crust together, they are known as lithosphere. This lithosphere is broken into pieces, which are known as plates. Why? Why they are moving? Because just below uppermost upper mantle, between 100 to 400 kilometer depth, between 100 to 400, this zone is known as asthenosphere. Between 100 to 400 kilometer. The upper part of asthenosphere, that is 100 to 200 kilometer depth, this region, upper part of asthenosphere, it is partially molten. This 100 to 200 kilometer extent, this is partially molten. It is partially molten, not completely molten, partially. 1% is molten. It is on this partially molten asthenosphere that these lithospheric plates keep on sliding. They keep on sliding. Why it is molten? See, whether the state will be molten or solid, it depends upon the relationship between temperature and pressure. If pressure is high, melting point rises. Here at this depth, temperature is just 800 to 900 degrees centigrade in upper asthenosphere, but pressure is less. So even at 800 to 800 to 900 degrees centigrade, rocks are in partially molten state because the prevailing pressure is less. As we move inside, temperature will increase, but the pressure also goes on increasing. So they are found in solid state, at times in molten state, because it is the relationship between pressure and temperature that will define whether the rocks will be in solid state or molten state. This zone between 100 to 200 kilometer, this is known as upper asthenosphere. It is known as upper asthenosphere or magma chamber. It is from here when the plates slide away, magma upwells. Magma upwells. At times, what happens when the plates move away, although rock may be in solid state, when the plates move away, there is a release of pressure, and because of which the rocks get molted and they upwell. It is from here, upper asthenosphere, it is known as magma chamber. Why? Because magma upwells from here as the plates diverge. And this magma gets attached to the trailing edges. Now, this upper asthenosphere is officially known as, this upper asthenosphere is officially known as low velocity zone. This is upper asthenosphere known as low velocity zone. That is between 100 to 200 kilometer depth. Very important. Suppose this is upper mantle. The uppermost part, that is 35 to 100 kilometer depth. This is uppermost part of upper mantle. Together with the crust, it is known as lithosphere. And this lithosphere is broken into plates, and these plates are moving. Why? Because between 100 to 200 kilometer, the upper part of asthenosphere, it is partially molten. It is on this partially molten asthenosphere, plates are sliding. It is this upper asthenosphere which is known as magma chamber, or this low velocity zone, because here in this zone the velocity of P wave and S waves decreases despite increase in pressure, increase in density. Now, how we came to know that it is partially molten? Simple. Velocity of P wave is given by this. आवाज नहीं बेटा. Now, as we move inside the earth, temperature, pressure, density all goes on increasing. Now, ideally, when density increases, I told you incompressibility and rigidity increases even faster. So velocity should increase. But here what we are discussing, density is increasing. This upper asthenosphere, although partially molten, it is denser than uppermost upper mantle. It is much denser. And despite increasing in density, ideally when the density increases, the incompressibility and rigidity also increases. But here, since velocity is decreasing, it can decrease only when this value of incompressibility and rigidity decrease, because we all know that when we move inside the earth, temperature, pressure and density goes on increasing. If density is increasing, then incompressibility and rigidity should increase. But here what we find, since velocity is decreasing, so that means the value of incompressibility and rigidity is decreasing, which can decrease only when either the matter is in molten state or partially molten. Since both P and S waves are passing through it, that means it is not completely molten. Because only in molten state, the value of incompressibility and rigidity can decrease. That means since S waves are also passing through it, that means it is not completely molten. Since the velocity of P and S wave is decreasing, this means these two values must decrease, and this can decrease only when the state is partially molten, because S wave is also passing through it, so it cannot be completely molten. So you need not use these formulas, simply write because the velocity of P and S waves abruptly decrease, which indicates that the matter is in partially molten state in upper atmosphere. Below this, this between 200 to 400 kilometer, it is solid asthenosphere. Why? How do we know it? Because velocity consistently goes on increasing. That means there is gradual increase in density, incompressibility, and rigidity. That means it is in solid state. Lower asthenosphere is solid. Between 400 to 670 kilometer, this part of upper mantle is known as mantle transition zone, between 400 to 670 kilometer. Here also velocity gradually goes on increasing. That means there is no abrupt change. There is gradual increase in density and increase in incompressibility and rigidity. So what is happening? Velocity is gradually increasing. It is here at a depth of 670 kilometer that we witness abrupt increase in velocity. When the seismic waves move down, when they reach a depth of 670 kilometer, just below it, there's abrupt increase in velocity. That indicates a level of discontinuity. And this is lower mantle. That is much more wider. That is 670 kilometer to 2,900 kilometer. Now there are certain unique things about lower mantle. First, no earthquake focus. Focus means the place where the earthquake occurs. No earthquake focus can be deeper than 670 kilometer. Means earthquake focus, earthquake cannot occur in lower mantle. Earthquake cannot occur below 670 kilometer. Why? Because I told you what is earthquake. Earthquake, when the rocks inside the earth break or at the surface break, those displaced rocks are further, this displacement traverses all across the earth in the form of seismic waves. But I told you in lower mantle temperature is so high that rocks exist in the form of minerals. There's no rock. When there's no rock, what will break? Have you seen the sand near the sea coast? You can make a heap of sand and you punch it, there will be no vibration. Vibrations are felt only when there is some solid. You hit an iron rod on a solid piece, your hands will vibrate. But if you hit on a sandbar, your hands won't vibrate. Lower mantle does not have any rocks. When it does not have any rocks, what will break? There's nothing to break. So no earthquake below 670 kilometer. Second important thing, highest velocity of seismic wave is found in lower mantle. Why? I'll discuss. Highest velocity of seismic wave is found in lower mantle. So let us discuss about lower mantle. Lower mantle is having no rocks. It is made up of minerals. Temperature, if you see, at a depth of 670 kilometer, temperature is 2000 degrees centigrade, and at a depth of 2900 kilometer, temperature is 3500 degree centigrade. So in lower mantle, temperature varies from 2000 to 3500. If we talk about rocks, no rocks are found. Because of high temperature, rocks exist in the form of minerals. I told you when any rock is heated, it dissociates into minerals. Further heated, they dissociate into elements. So here only minerals are found: olivine, plagioclase, orthoclase are the dominant minerals. If you talk about density in lower mantle, average density is 6.5 gram per centimeter cube. So this was about lower mantle. Now, when the seismic waves reach a depth of 2,900 kilometer, again moving down, when we move below 2,900 kilometer, abruptly S waves disappear and velocity of P waves abruptly slows down. This disappearance of S wave and abrupt slowing down of velocity indicates that below 2,900 matter inside the earth is molten, completely molten. S waves disappear. S waves are found only up to this depth. Now, below this molten state is there, and there's abrupt change in velocity. So this abrupt change in velocity means there's a level of discontinuity, and this is known as Gutenberg discontinuity. Gutenberg. So this is 2,900 kilometer, and this is the center of Earth, 6,371 kilometer. The radius of Earth is 6,371. So when the seismic waves move beyond 2,900, then what happens? S waves disappear. Gutenberg discontinuity. This is core. Below core extends from 2,900 to 6,371 kilometer. If you see the radius of core is this radius of core is more than the half of radius of Earth. Now, core is different from rest of the Earth. Rest of the Earth is rocky. Core is metallic. Core is metallic, made up of metals. It is because of metallic composition that the density of core is more than twice that of mantle. And it is divided into two parts. Outer core from 2,900 to 5,150 kilometer. This is outer core. Here what we find, it is completely molten. Again the seismic waves have revealed, because S waves disappear and the velocity of P waves abruptly slows down. Velocity of P wave abruptly slows down. Outer core, basically why it is molten? Same, it is molten because the pressure prevailing at a depth of 2,900 kilometer is not sufficient enough to prevent melting. It is molten at a temperature of 4,500 degrees centigrade. Outer core is molten, temperature is 4,500. Inner core temperature is 6,000 degrees centigrade. Still it is solid. Why? Because the pressure prevailing over the inner core, this pressure is 3.5 million atmosphere. At such high pressure, even the temperature would have been 10,000, still it would have been solid, because the prevailing pressure over the inner core is 3.5 million atmosphere. So despite higher temperature, inner core is solid. Now outer core, if you see, it is 85% made up of iron and nickel and 15% silica. The content of silica goes on decreasing. If you see density, 10 grams per centimeter cube, or this is the mineral composition, this is the density, this is the temperature. At a depth of 5,000 150 kilometer, again the velocity of P wave abruptly increases. So this means there is a level of discontinuity. It was discovered by Lehman. So it is known as Lehman discontinuity. Now, below 5150 or below Lehman discontinuity, the velocity of P wave abruptly increases. That indicates that the inner core is solid. Despite that abrupt increase, the maximum velocity recorded in inner core is less than what is recorded in lower mantle. Why? Because outer core is roughly 22,000 kilometer thick. 2,200, roughly 2,000 kilometer thick, 2,000 kilometer. And for that extent, the velocity of P wave decreases so much that despite its increase in inner core, it never reaches to that level which was acquired in lower mantle. Now, this inner core extends from 5,150 to 6,371 kilometer. It is 99% made up of iron and nickel. Temperature is 6,000 degrees centigrade. And the density is 13 grams per centimeter cube. Here, the prevailing pressure is so high that despite 6,000 degrees centigrade, it is solid. Now, here I have explained you everything, but this is not the way to write an answer. एक ही question आता है, one question gets repeated every time. How seismic waves reveal about Earth's interior, or explain the physical conditions prevailing inside the Earth with the help of seismic waves. Now, what do I find? People end up discussing seismic waves. No, beta, you have to discuss the Earth's interior and how it has been revealed by seismic waves. Here I have discussed numerous facts, numerous concepts, but while writing the answer, you must avoid using any formulas. For example, same question. There is no need to use any formula over here. How to write? Question is same. How does the seismic waves reveal about the Earth's interior, or explain how seismic waves explain the physical conditions of Earth's interior? Uh, um, Same. What all information, every bit of information that we have about Earth's interior has been revealed by seismic waves. Now, first paragraph, you should, a synopsis. Even if you want synopsis, first let me tell you the procedure. First, in introduction, simply write, in the absence of direct observation inside the Earth's interior, we depend upon certain secondary sources. Among them, seismic waves happen to be the most authentic source of information about Earth's interior, right? Second, seismic waves have a property that they undergo abrupt change in velocity and direction when they pass through two radically different density medium. And the level that separates two radically different density medium is known as level of discontinuity, right? Third point, the abrupt change in velocity inside the Earth, the abrupt change in the velocity of seismic waves inside the Earth have revealed various levels of discontinuities. Like, draw the map and show all these discontinuities. Conrad discontinuity, Mohorovic discontinuity, so their depth also. Rapides, 670 kilometer. Gutenberg, 2,900 kilometer. Lehman, 5,150 kilometer. Draw this map. This is the first part of your answer. Second part, seismic waves are witnessed to undergo abrupt decrease in velocity when they pass to 100 to 200 kilometer depth. It has been observed from seismograph that all across the earth, seismic waves undergo abrupt decrease in velocity when they pass through 100 to 200 kilometer depth. Now 100 to 200. Now this zone is known as low velocity zone. It is seismic waves that have revealed that between 100 to 200 kilometer matter is partially molten. So you need not explain anything. No need to write formula. I explained you because as we move inside, density increases. When density increases, the incompressibility and rigidity increases even faster. But inside that, if this would have happened between 100 to 200, then velocity would have increased. But velocity is actually decreasing. That means incompressibility and rigidity have decreased, and they can decrease only when matter is either molten or partially molten. Since S waves are also passing, so it is not completely molten, it is partially molten. ये सब बताने की जरूरत नहीं है. Simply you write the abrupt decrease in velocity of P and S waves reveal that that Earth is partially molten between 100 to 200 kilometer depth, and this zone is known as low velocity zone, also known as magma chamber. Below this, up to 670 kilometer, velocity consistently increases. Again, uh, uh, at a depth of 670, abrupt increase, velocity, and then at a depth of 2,900 kilometer, we witness that below this depth, S waves disappear and P waves abruptly slows down. This indicates that outer core is completely molten, and this outer molten core extends from 5150 है ना 2,900 kilometer to 5150 kilometer. Further, there's abrupt increase in the velocity below Lehman discontinuity. Below 5,150 kilometer, the velocity of P wave abruptly increases, which indicates that the inner core is solid. That's it. So the second part. Last part of your answer. Last part is seismic waves not only reveal about the mineral composition that make up the earth interior, they also reveal the temperature, pressure, and density prevailing at various depths. Now, after writing this, draw sectional map of earth, and here you have to write all the information. Matlab, seismic wave reveal the mineral composition, what all continental crust, what all rocks, what all minerals, what is the temperature, what is the density, again rock, temperature, density, minerals, then upper mantle, what are the various rocks, minerals, temperature, density, in lower mantle, what rocks, mineral density, in outer core, inner core, what all minerals make up the Earth's interior, what is the density, temperature, everything, entire information. That's it. No need to use any formula. Or synopsis you can make in 3 lines. First, you can draw this. First part is various levels of discontinuity. In second part, we discuss partially molten asthenosphere and completely molten outer core and solid inner core. In third part, we discuss what all rocks and what all minerals and what all temperature, pressure, densities prevailing inside the earth. Draw a diagram. That's it. Right? Make it a habit. Synopsis, when you will read it 10 times, then you will make the synopsis. Synopsis में बस crux पहली बात introduction, तो you must know basically in the absence of direct observation वो सब लिखना है. उसके बाद केवल seismic waves undergo abrupt change in velocity which indicates various levels of discontinuity. In second part, you will write simply discuss about the upper asthenosphere, outer core and inner core. because this is these informations, and here there is a gradual increase, a- abrupt increase, then the seismic waves have revealed, then outer core, inner core. These will be the most important part, because seismic waves have revealed the outer core is molten, inner core is solid. And in last part, you will draw a sectional diagram and mention all the rocks that in upper continental crust, oceanic crust, upper mantle, lower mantle, outer core, inner core, what all rocks, what all minerals, what are temperature, pressure, density, what is found, because these things have been revealed by seismic wave. Yeah. There was questions here, see that essay on evolution of continents and using various theories. Ah, yes, I know it. There was a question. Yes, I have discussed the original evolution of Earth crust by way of plate tectonic theory. That is the most authentic theory, most proven. So this was the second topic. Don't worry, we will discuss previous year's questions uh, separately also. But this topic was the first topic that I discussed yesterday. Focus on this topic. You see, questions have been asked from this also. Now, uh, any more doubt? Any more doubt? So let us come on to our next topic, geosynclines. So it is a very small topic. Usually a short note is asked from this. है ना? It is a small topic. एक minute. Now, how did this concept of geosyncline came into being? Uh, Various scholars while they were studying the fold mountains, when the scholars were studying the fold mountains, they found these fold mountains are made up of marine sedimentary rocks. That is, they are made up of such rocks which got formed in water bodies. And they also found numerous marine fossils, that is, remains of those organisms that live in sea. They were perplexed, confused. How come these mountains standing so high and ocean lying so low? How come this mountain got these rocks that make up these mountain? How come these rocks got formed in water bodies? And how these marine sediments, why these marine sediments are found? They could not have any opinion. They could not make any opinion how it is happening. Ultimately, they accepted maybe in place of these mountains, there would have existed some water body in geological past. In place of these mountains, there would have existed any water body, and that water body might have been receiving sediments from the neighboring land areas, and sediments would have got deposited, continued to for deposited for millions of years, and because of this sedimentation, when the thickness of sediment would have increased, the floor of the water body would have subsided. Maybe this sediment would have continued to deposit and the floor of water body would have subsided. Huge thickness of sediment would have got deposited. Later on, due to any reason, this sediment which got deposited would have got squeezed, and because of squeezing, this would have folded into fold mountain. This was the only hypothesis that they could propound at that time, because there was no other logical answer to it. So then what they did, they studied the geological history of Earth. When they studied the geological history of Earth, they found initially our globe was characterized by two features. One is rigid masses surrounded by water bodies. Rigid masses surrounded by water bodies. These water bodies are usually known as mobile zones of water bodies. Why? Because their location, shape, and size was changing. Now we know it is because of movement of plates. At that time, they never knew it. They thought they were termed as mobile zones of water body because the location and the shape and size was changing. So initially, Earth was characterized by two features: rigid masses surrounded by water bodies. If you see the previous lecture, I told you while I was discussing this previous lecture, I told you that this is this was the plate. This thermal convection currents were rising. This subducted plate melted and volcanic arc came into existence. This again melted, volcanic arc came into existence, and this was all water body. I was discussing yesterday. See, the same thing. Initially, the Earth was characterized by rigid masses. These were the rigid masses, volcanic arcs that got formed, surrounded by water bodies. These water bodies were receiving sediment, and this sediment was getting squeezed and folded into fold mountain. I discussed yesterday. So they said these water bodies which existed were receiving sediment, might have been receiving sediment, and because of this sedimentation, subsidence would have taken place. Water sea floor would have subsided, and later on, because of compression, these water bodies got squeezed and folded into fold mountain. In place of these water bodies, these fold mountains that are made up of marine sedimentary rocks, they came into existence. And these water bodies have been termed as geosynclines. That is, they are the cradles of mountain building. From these geosynclines, fold mountains have formed. Now, so this was the brief I have discussed in brief. Now I'll discuss elaborately how this concept came into existence. So this was a long drawn process. At that time, the concept of plate was not known. Geosynclines are basically found on plates. I'll discuss it later. So they believed, yes, these water bodies, these mobile zones of water bodies, they termed it as geosynclines. And from here, the sediment that got deposited, sedimentation and subsidence, and then later these water bodies got squeezed and folded into full mount. Now, historical evolution of concept, how this concept of geosyncline came into being. First, it was Dana and Hall. Dana was the chief scientist. He was studying Appalachian mountain. I discussed Appalachians are found on the eastern side of North America. Mostly they lie in USA, eastern side. So he was studying Appalachian mountain, and he studied the rocks that make up the Appalachian mountain, and he also studied the fossils that are found on this mountain. He studied the rocks of those mountains and the fossils, marine fossils of those mountains, and he concluded that these rocks and marine fossils got formed. Initially, they got deposited in such water body which was long, narrow, and shallow. On the basis of his study of the rocks that make up this mountain, he concluded that these rocks got and formed in such water bodies which were long, narrow, and shallow. And these water bodies, the sediment deposited in these water bodies, subsequently got squeezed and folded into Appalachian mountain. And for the first time, Dana coined the word geosyncline for such water bodies. Hall his assistant, he further elaborated this concept and tried to provide various evidences that all fold mountains have got formed from geosynclines. That is, those mobile zones of water bodies which are characterized by sedimentation and subsidence, and subsequently the sediment gets squeezed and folded into fold mountain. Next, Hogg. Hogg studied alpine mountain, and on the basis of his study of those rocks and marine fossils, he concluded that geosynclines are long, narrow, and deep water bodies. And he, in order to prove his point, he even produced paleogeographical map. That is, paleo means old. He made up a map of the earth of Mesozoic era. In his map, he tried to illustrate, see, these were long, narrow, deep water bodies, and they were surrounded by land areas. These were the oceanic tracts. He depicted water bodies, geosynclines, as oceanic tracts which were bounded by land. This is all land. These are oceanic tracts that he called as geosynclines. But his theory was rejected at that time. Firstly, because of this map. In Mesozoic era, he has depicted such large land area and so small water bodies. We know that initially it was all water. Gradually, the land has evolved. Still, it is 29%. In Mesozoic era, the land area would have been just 20%. Here, he has depicted unbelievable large land areas and water bodies are smaller. But water has always been more. Land has gradually evolved. So his depiction of unbelievably large land areas, land was very less initially. So this refuted his theory. And second, certain critics of his time also discovered such marine fossils that belong to shallow water. In the same alpine mountain, some of the scholars of his time, they found various fossil fuels of marine organisms which belong to shallow water body. So they contrasted that deep, it's not deep, it's shallow. But later we'll see it's both shallow as well as some parts are deep. But at that time, his theory was refuted because of these two reasons. Large land areas depicted by him on the map of Mesozoic era, and second, several evidences of shallow water body marine fossils. But he said these are deep. Then came another scholar, Schuchert. He said that there are three types of geosynclines. Monogeosynclines, polygeosynclines, and mesogeosynclines. He said there are three types. Monogeosynclines, he said these are long, narrow, and shallow, just like Dana's geosyncline. These are long, narrow, shallow, and they pass through only one phase of mountain building. So he called them mono. Long, narrow, shallow water body like this, receiving sediment. It is narrow, sediment is getting subsidence. Since it is narrow, so what happens? When the compression takes place, the entire sediment gets squeezed and folded into fold mountain since it is narrow. So only these geosynclines have only one phase of mountain building, like Appalachian geosyncline. Polygeosyncline, he said these are long but wider. They are long but wider. Since they are wider, so what will happen? They are long but wider and shallow. These are wider. Since they are wider, so what happens? When the compression takes place, in first phase, some sediment will get squeezed and folded. In second phase, some more sediment will get squeezed and folded. In third phase, some more sediment. There will be various phases. Polygeosynclines, since they are wide, so the entire sediment does not get folded in one go. Rather, since they are wide, so some sediment gets folded first, then some remaining sediment gets folded next. That is, they pass through more than one phase of mountain building. Polygeosynclines, they pass through more than one phase of mountain building. And the third one, meso, they are very long, narrow. Compared to their length, they are narrow and very deep. Like Tethys geosyncline. Tethys geosyncline existed north of Africa and north of Indian Peninsula Plateau and south of Eurasia. Now, Indian oceanic crust of the Indian plate has completely subducted below the Eurasian plate. So, peninsula and the sediment got squeezed and folded into fold mountain. But in the African part, the Mediterranean Sea that remains is the remnant of Tethys Sea. African plate, still water body is there between Africa and Europe. Mediterranean Sea is there. That is the remnant of Tethys Sea. Previously, the sea was extending all north of Africa and Peninsula India. Huge long sea was there. It was, compared to its length, it was narrow and very deep. They pass through several phases of mountain building. If you see where the Indian plate and African plate are subducting below Eurasian plate, previously there was a water body. Now what do you find? Various mountain ranges, Himalayan ranges and Hindu Kush range, Zagros range in Iran, Elburz range in Iran, Pontic and Taurus range in Anatolia Plateau, then further Carpathian Mountain, Dinaric Alps, Cantabrian Mountain, Pennine Range. All these have emerged from Tethys Sea because of subduction of Indian plate and African plate below Eurasian plate. So these were the earlier concept. Now let us discuss the modern concept, which is now accepted. Modern view regarding geosyncline. It was in 1935 to 1950 that the various orogeny belts of the world were studied. Orogeny belts means where fold mountains are existing. Various orogeny belts of world were studied. Then it was found by Steele that geosynclines are not the way we used to conceive them. They are not depressions of uniform depth. Previously, we used to think that geosynclines were water body having a uniform depth, receiving sediment from both sides, getting subsided. But this, when the orogeny belts of the world were studied, it was found these geosynclines are not of uniform depth. Rather, they are shallow in certain regions and very deep in certain regions. They are in the form of two parallel depressions. And these two parallel depressions are separated by raised basement rock that they called as gianticline. This is continent. This is open sea, ocean. This is raised basement rock known as genticline. And geosynclines are in the form of two parallel depression. One depression that exists close to the land and it is smaller, myogeosyncline. And one depression is deep and it is located away from land towards open sea. This is the main geosyncline known as geosyncline. So now we know that it is not a two-sided trough. It is not bounded by land on both the side. Initially, we used to think that water bodies, geosynclines, are bounded by land on both the side. Therefore, we called it geo, means earth. Syncline means depression that is bounded by land on both sides. When we came to know that shape of geosyncline is like this, on one side they are bounded by land, on other side they are open to sea. Then they said this word is not proper. They should be called as geocline because they are bounded by land only on one side. Later on, when we came to know about plates, then we came to know, oh, geosyncline is nothing. This is oceanic crust. This is continental crust. Basically, this oceanic plate is subducting below this continental plate. Here it is subducting. Where, suppose this is continental plate and this is oceanic plate. This is water body. Oceanic plate, this is continental. Here where it is subducting, trench is there. This myogeosyncline is nothing but it is trench. And towards the shallow part of land area where the water bodies are shallow, it is myogeosyncline. So actually geosynclines are located on plates. See this oceanic crust, oceanic plate is subducting below this continental plate. And at the place where it is subducting, trench is there. So this geosyncline is actually located in a trench. And myogeosyncline is located towards shallow water on the landward side, right? So they said now they should call it a geocline instead of geosyncline. This is the modern view that we accept. This is actually accepted. This is the shape of geosyncline. Now there are 3 stages in the evolution of geosyncline. And these 3 stages, Kober has also used the same 3 stages for the formation of mountain. There are 3 stages. Stages of evolution of geosyncline. Lithogenesis, orogenesis, kleptogenesis. First is lithogenesis. In this stage, it is related to creation of geosyncline, filling up of that depression with water, sedimentation, deposition of sediment, and subsidence, lowering of sea bed. So lithogenesis is the first stage. It relates to creation of geosyncline, its sedimentation and subsidence. Orogenesis, because of compression, this sediment gets squeezed and folded into fold mountain. That is orogenesis, second stage. Third stage, glyptogenesis. There's a gradual rise, but because of weathering of these cold mountains, gradually their height starts decreasing, and these weathered sediment get deposited in the remaining water body that has been found in the margins. This body gets filled with sediment, and geosyncline completely disappears. This third stage, glyptogenesis, is what? Initially, there's gradual rise, but because of weathering and erosion, the height of the mountains start decreasing, and this weathered sediment get deposited in the marginal water bodies of geosyncline, and that water body gets silted by sediment. There's lowering in the height of mountain, and geosyncline completely disappears. These three stages also happen to be the three stages of evolution of mountain. Covert's, according to Covert's erosion theory, how full mountains got formed. He used these three stages. So in this, how to write synopsis? Very simple. First, what are geosynclines? Standard. Geosynclines are mobile zones of water bodies characterized by sedimentation and subsidence, which subsequently get squeezed and folded into full mountain. Second part, you have to give various views. Dana, Hogg, Suchert, Keeley. In one line, according to Dana, they were long, narrow, shallow. Hogg, they were long, narrow, deep. Suchert, mono, geosyncline, poly, geosyncline, meso, geosyncline. Steely, he gave the view of geocline. On one side bounded by land, on other side by, this is raised basement rock, anticline. This is mono, I'm sorry, mu, geosyncline. This is mu u. And third point, three stages: lithogenesis, orogenesis, glyptogenesis. That's it. This is the synopsis. Intro, you must remember in your mind. Dana, Hogg, long, narrow, shallow, long, narrow, deep, mono, poly, meso. You must know what is mono. Steely, and three stages. You can make synopsis only when you have studied, you have read your notes at least 5 to 10 times, right? So today we'll sum up over here these two topics. Tomorrow there's a very important topic we'll start, that is isostasy, because we won't be able to finish it today. So these two topics are for today, and read them, and I will also encrypt them and send you through Google Drive to all of you, both the video of yesterday and today. But give me some time, it will take some time in compression. We'll have to compress it and then encrypt it, right? By that time, just you have made notes, you might be having the study material, go through it. We'll start tomorrow.